This is the second part of the video. Please watch the first part of the video in order to get the full context of this discussion. Now, let's continue. Then, point number 4, realize and understand the spirit of the past. And this is very important. Just as it's not appropriate to use one religion's paradigm to judge another, we also can't and shouldn't use today's moral standards to judge people in the past. Why did people practice slavery in the past? In Islam, slavery existed, in Christianity, and so on. In ancient times, slavery wasn't just desired by masters. Many people registered as slaves. Why was that? Because in ancient times, the resources accessible to humans were far fewer and had to be shared by many people compared to today. As hungry as you are today, for example, the chances of you starving to death are slim. But in ancient times, starvation was possible for half the human population. It was certainly possible in ancient times. We have to understand it in that context. Or in the context of prostitution, for example, I'm ready to perform or provide sexual services, but give me food and so on. That's because the challenges in ancient times were like that. Or in a more specific story, the Prophet Muhammad practiced polygamy. Why did the Prophet practice polygamy? The Arabian region was incredibly barren, and because it was barren, its resources were very limited. So the human population had to compete to maintain its existence, that of its group and that of its tribe. And because of that, they were accustomed to war. The climate was terrible, they were warlike, and it was difficult for them to achieve equality. So the only way was, yes, the people there had to practice polygamy, because with polygamy, the population could offset the extreme mortality rate there. That's how it was. So without polygamy, Arabs would have been extinct from the start, guaranteed, because life expectancy is very low, very low. That's how it is. That's why now we think about polygamy, it must be protested, it must be complained about, it doesn't align with women's rights, there are feminists and so on. During the time of the Prophet Muhammad, not a single woman protested or complained about polygamy. Even young women in ancient times, if they wanted to marry a man, even of their own free will, never considered setting the criterion that the man must be single. No. It was fine. In fact, the more wives, the better for the woman in ancient times, because women had low bargaining power at that time. That's why in the time of the Prophet Muhammad, why did he practice polygamy? It wasn't just normal, it was a necessity in ancient times. So look at the context of the time. Likewise, when the Prophet was accused of practicing underage marriage, the term pedophilia or underage marriage has only been around since the 19th century. Before that, everyone married at a young age, in their teens or younger, and it was commonplace. Why is that? Especially in Arabia, in the Middle East. Why? Because the mortality rate there is extremely high. The average life expectancy there is less than 40 years. When they're old enough, they immediately start reproducing, because that was a demand before they died, because most of them died young. I apologize, the Prophet had many children, 6 or 7. Yes, only one reached adulthood. The rest died in childhood. The challenges in ancient times were so extreme. That's why people in ancient times were accustomed to marrying at a young age, and this applied to everyone in that era. So again, look at the context of the times. Don't judge what happened in the past with today's perspective and criteria. That's the 4th point. Then, the 5th point, we must understand that commands and prohibitions in religion must be fully linked to humans' efforts to overcome the challenges of the times. So religion, in the context of commands and prohibitions, or recommendations and goodness and so on, must be in accordance with the needs of the time. So now we think that polygamy will cause misery for women. Let's say that's the case. In ancient times, there was no such thing, because the challenges to survival were different. Or, for example, in Japanese Shinto tradition, let's take a step back, in Japanese Shinto tradition, there's never a prohibition against this kind or that kind of sex. There's no such story. Why? Because Japanese religion focuses on the balance between humans and nature, on traditional values and mythology. That's where the need is. If, for example, in another place the needs were different, then religion came to provide solutions to the challenges faced by the society at that time. So that's how it's understood. Therefore, it's a fatal mistake to try to use the reasoning of one particular religion to judge the religion of another. Those who habitually do that will debate for eternity with the same repeated arguments, and they will continue to fuel hatred without any of them ultimately attaining enlightenment.